All right, game one of the Knicks Pacers series just wrapped up a couple hours ago. I'm recording this a few hours after the game, and you could tell from the title I am a Knicks fan, and I have a couple of thoughts that I really wanted to share about this game. Before I really dive into it from the perspective of a fan of the New York Knicks, I really wanted to talk about just how incredible this game was. It was such a fun game, one of the best games of the playoffs so far. Maybe the best. The Nuggets have a couple of bangers up there with the Clippers and the Thunder, but this was a really, really fun game, and the Pacers somehow always keep it interesting. You know, the Pacers might have stronger devil magic than the Kansas City Chiefs because twice in a playoff run is absolutely diabolical. But I'm gonna talk about both conference finals games that happened the past 2 days. You had Minnesota and Oklahoma on Tuesday night, and then just today you had the Knicks and the Pacers. But first, I'm gonna start off with the Pacers game because that's sort of what's fresh off my mind. Man, what a comeback! Aaron Nesmith went ballistic. He channeled his inner Reggie Miller, his inner Steph Curry. He hit 5 threes in a row. He scored 17 points in the last 3 minutes and 24 seconds of the fourth quarter. The Knicks were up 16 points. And Aaron Nesmith decided he wants to be 2016 Steph Curry and hit 6 threes in a row. Man, that was some ridiculous shot making from him, because they weren't just wide open catch and shoot threes. He was pulling up from 8 feet behind the 3-point line. He was shooting over. He was pulling up off the dribble. And shout out to the Pacers. I can't even, obviously I'm upset, but I can't really be mad at the loss. That was sort of one of those fluky. I'm not even going to say fluky. I can't. They've done it twice already, so you can't really call it fluky, right? But that was just an insane loss, because making 5 threes in a row to win a game like that is insane. And shout out Tyrese for that, step back, spin back shot, that T-Mac, that Penny Hardaway shot. That was a 2. Otherwise, man, he would have oral farmed the Knicks so hard with his doing the Reggie Miller choke. But it was a 2. The game went to overtime, and the Knicks quickly went up 6, but they fouled, I believe it was and one, then Andrew Nembhard 3. Pacers took the lead for the first time since the second quarter, and then they were able to close it out after Brunson tapped the ball out of bounds. Just an unfortunate loss, but I want to, let's dive into it a little bit. What could the Knicks have done better in this situation? I think the closing moments, they didn't play bad. They didn't really, do anything outrageously wrong. Not like what Oklahoma did against the Nuggets, where they kept fouling up 3, but they didn't let any clock drain. I don't think the Knicks necessarily did anything super, super wrong. One thing they did is they did miss some free throws. They missed, I believe it was 12 free throws this game. You can't really have that. They were, 28 of 40 from the free throw line. You can't really have that. They shot good from the field. They shot 51%, decent enough from 3, about 32%. But the free throws is really where, you wish you had those. You win the game if you hit those. I thought Cat was outstanding today. I thought Brunson was also really good, but he had some, unfortunate turnovers. A few plays where he got hit and refs didn't call a foul, and I think he expected a foul call, so he just loosened up a little bit, and they were able to get a steal and fast break buckets. A couple unfortunate turnovers. Mikal and OG also had 3 apiece, so that's something you look out for. As for the role players, Mitchell Robinson played quite good in his limited minutes. And I thought the minutes where you had Cat and Robinson on the floor rebounding was really, really good. You were crashing the glass, and that's really what led to the lead. One thing that, Brunson does deserve criticism for this game, he picked up a lot of ticky-tacky, really dumb fouls. He had 5 fouls with about 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and he didn't really check back in until about the 5-minute mark. And, I'm nitpicking because they did go on a massive run, but if you're out there, you have maybe the lead's a little bit bigger, you don't lose the game. But man, the Knicks, I don't know how much better they really could have played to close the game out. Maybe you play better defense, but I get it. You're trying to not give them fouls. They were in the bonus with a couple of minutes left, like about 5 minutes left in the fourth, and you're not trying to foul them and give them easy buckets. But at some point, when you see Neesmith hit his, third three in a row, you try and deny the ball from him. And before that, Tyrese was going crazy. Tyrese had 6 points in the first half, and he finished the game with like 30. He was going crazy. And, you just have to play better defense, I think. And Cat was great offensively. Defensively, you want a bit more, but he did hold his own against, Miles Turner and Obi Toppin. They played good defense on them. But really, TJ McConnell was also fantastic for the Pacers, man. I hate that dude. But the defense is really what I thought it came down to. Offensively, they were fine. They did have a couple of turnovers that did eventually end up causing the game to go to overtime. But the game doesn't go to overtime if Aaron Neesmith isn't hitting those ridiculous shots. Like, some of the shots he hit were just crazy. And that Tyrese shot to actually send the game to OT was diabolical. Step back, spinning, fade away, 2. If that was a 3, I would not have opened Twitter at all today. And when you look at the game, right, after everything's over, you look at the stats, right, there isn't really anything from the Knicks side that says, oh, this is what they did wrong and why they lost the game, outside of the turnovers and the free throws. 15 turnovers, 12 missed free throws, compared to the Pacers, who had 7 turnovers, 7 missed free throws, right? Those are the two distinguishing factors. They shot well from the field. They shot okay from 3. You really can't ask much, But when it came down to it, their other players stepped up. And I think today, I can't really say that anyone outside of Cat or Brunson played exceptionally well. Mikal did play good. He had 16 points. He was passing. He had made the right reads. Josh Hart also played well. He just didn't shoot a lot. He wasn't making his shots. And I thought his decision-making was quite good as well. OG Anunoby was decent today. He was amazing defensively. He hit the big, he went on his own 5-0 run with the step-back 3 and then the transition layup. His own 5-0 run, which was really, really big in building that actual 16-point lead that we had. I thought Miles McBride offensively wasn't very good today. He took a pull-up 3 in transition when maybe you reset there, let it control down a bit, give the ball to Cat, give the ball to Brunson. I don't think Brunson was in at that time, but, just settle it down a little bit. But he took a very rush shot. Campaign wasn't good in his limited minutes. 2 for 7, 3 fouls. Can't have that. DeLon Wright also played a little bit this game. I think Reggie Miller referred to him as Dorian Wright, but it is what it is. It's a tough loss, but I think the series is absolutely not over. I think everybody saw that Knicks can take control of the game at an instant. They just weren't able to land a knockout punch this time like they were able to against the Celtics. And I do think the Knicks are the better team by a significant margin, if I'm to be honest. But you have some games like this, and it happens. I think it's important how they build back. And I definitely can see this series going to 6 games, 7 games maybe, but I definitely still think the Knicks are in control. They're going to be able to win this series because I know we've seen the Pacers do this twice now. You can't really rely on that type of stuff every single time to win you games. They haven't shown that they could take it from the jump and then roll with it. But man, give me 7 games of this, As a Knicks fan, I don't want it to go 7, but man, this is some fun hoops. It's very different from the basketball we've seen in the Western Conference side. Now we want to move on to the Wolves and Thunder series. There's been a lot of discourse about it, and it's been quite negative towards the newly crowned MVP Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And I wanted to actually start off with that. Before the series began, I thought the Wolves matched up pretty well against the Thunder. They had a lot of defensive wings. They had Rudy Gobert at the center of the defense. And Oklahoma City is a very low frequency 3-point shooting team. And I thought with Gobert, and you have strong wing defenders in Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Ant, you'd be able to hold your own against OKC's relentless attack at the rim. And with Rudy Gobert at the center, I thought, it was a really strong recipe. And where it all started in game one from, what we were watching, what I was watching, they held their own defensively. The defense wasn't bad. The Thunder hit some tough shots. Shea wasn't playing well at all. And in the third and fourth quarter, he really did turn it up. He really flipped the switch. He went 7 for 12 in the second half. He was 3 for 15 in the first half. Struggling, right? Of course he was struggling. Jado played well. Alex Caruso was incredible on both sides. He didn't miss a three. His defense was amazing. Dort played well. All your role players played well. Chet played well as well. You played a basically perfect game. But this is where it all came down to. Their defense, the Thunder's defense, was insane. Nobody on the Wolves could do anything. They really, really couldn't. And, we see the Wolves. We've seen the Wolves play. We know their identity. They are a bruising squad. They have a lot of bruising players and is a bruiser. Julius Randle is a bruiser. By the way, he played amazing as well. Julius Randle played really, really well this game. And as a Knicks fan, it's nice to see after all of his playoff struggles with the Knicks. And outside of Julius Randle, nobody else on the team played well. Nobody else. You had Ant struggling. You had Naz Reid struggling. Nah couldn't hit a shot. Dante has been struggling and especially struggled here. Mike Conley was struggling. And when you look at the stats and when you just were watching the game, you were like, wow, the Wolves look uncomfortable. And they were. The Thunder made it extremely, extremely uncomfortable for them. They didn't let them get to their spots. They forced them to take threes. And they shot 50 3-pointers. 15 for 50 from three. Not the worst percentage in the world. That's 30%. But that's not what the Thunder are about. Or that's not what the Wolves are about. They are not a super high volume shooting team. Outside of Naz Reid, there aren't really very many elite shooters on the team. And that's kind of what it really, really came down to. They were forced to play a style that they are not used to. They don't want to play like that. They want to play a little slower. They want to get to their spots. They want to get to the rim. And the Thunder did a fantastic job of not allowing that to happen. And only had 18 points. He struggled from the field. Naz Reid was 0 for 8 at one point. He got a few points when the game was out of reach. Did not shoot well at all. Randall played great, like I said. Rudy Gobert had 2 points. Mike Conley was struggling. Who else was it? Dante. Dante was struggling. And the sort of real defining play was when the Thunder were going on their little run there. On like the Wolves didn't score. It was like a 12-0 run. The Timberwolves took 3 30-foot 3-pointers in a row. 3. Naz Reid took one from the left wing. Bricked it. Offensive rebound. And step back. Deep 3. Air ball. Naz Reid again or was it Naz Reid or Dante? I forget. One of the two took a really, really deep shot right after that. Missing. Brick after brick after brick. And the Thunder capitalized on the fast break. I think I saw a stat. The Wolves had 0 fast break points this game, which is insane. They're a fast. When you have Anthony Edwards on your team, you are a fast-paced team. You're looking to get out in transition, right? And not being able to get in transition, not forcing turnovers. You played really good stand-up defense. You didn't force many turnovers, but that's all right. you're happy with playing good defense. But not having transition buckets is a really big issue because in the half court, the Thunder's defense is almost unfuckwittable. It's so hard to score. Even the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, struggle against that defense. And nobody on their team is Nikola Jokic. Nobody. And I think that's really where it struggles because Anthony Edwards, as good as he is, he's incredible. His game, has developed so much from what he was. His playmaking isn't the best. And I'm not gonna he doesn't deserve the blame for this game, frankly. Like he played as well as he could have. He could have played better, hit more shots, put his footprint on this game. But I think if his playmaking gets better, he may be able to dot the late rotations in the corner. He may be able to drive and kick even better. And that's a part of the game that, that could unlock the Wolves and be the key to success for them in this series. And I really wanted to talk also about some controversial stuff that's happening in this series. A lot of people have turned on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And although I understand some people may not enjoy his game, foul bait or free throw merchant, I understand. He does, sell contact quite a bit. He does flop a little bit. But there's one thing we have to understand. If we're going to complain about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it cannot be from this game. It cannot stem from this game. Because, let me put it this way. Shai drove to the rim 25 times this game. Right? Himself 25 times. The Wolves starting 5 drove a combined 26 times to the rim. So, and I mentioned earlier, they shot 50 3-pointers. The Thunder shot like 24 threes. Let me give you the exact numbers really quickly. The Thunder shot 21 threes. Sorry, 5 less than what I said. 21. You cannot expect to get the same foul calls if you are not driving to the rim. I understand there were a couple fouls that were not fouls. They were not. Quite, put it simply, Shai did sell contact a lot this game. But what do you expect the refs to do? If the Wolves are not driving to the rim, if the Wolves are not trying to initiate contact, if they are not trying to, get to the line or get to the rim, the refs have to call it in favor of the Thunder. Because, frankly, that's the only way the refs can see it. They're not looking at how the Thunder are defending the Wolves when they're driving because the Wolves aren't driving. You took 50 3-pointers, right? And if the Thunder are driving to the rim, you have a much larger sample size of that. And you're going to call what you think is a foul. It's like saying, 20 shots, you make 5, someone makes, you make 5 shots out of 20. And then if someone takes 100 shots, you make 25 shots out of 100. It's the same percentage, it's completely different volume. And that's the exact same thing we were looking at. Right? Shai drove more than the entire Timberwolves team. The entire Timberwolves starting 5. He's going to get some foul calls, and the refs are going to make mistakes. I understand. Right? Some of those foul calls were not fouls. But if the Wolves did the same, it'd give the refs an opportunity to do the same for them in favor of them. The refs weren't leaning one way. That's not what the refs were doing. That's a misconception. The refs were simply calling it how they saw it, and they did make mistakes in that process. But the Wolves did not give the refs a chance to call the game in favor of them or call it down the middle because they simply refused to drive the basketball. 50 3-pointers. Keep that in mind. They shot, let me pull up how many shots they took in total. 83 shots, and 60% of them were 3-pointers. You cannot expect to get the same foul calls in the other 30 shots where you're maybe taking it to the rim or taking a mid-range shot. You just cannot expect that, right? Compare that to the Thunder. The Thunder had 61 shots inside the 3-point line. 61 compared to 30, right? It's not the same thing. And like I said, I understand Shai does embellish contact. He does, initiate it. He does flop. But this game is not one of the games where you can complain about that. He played well in the second half. Not the whole game, he played well in the second half. And from my initial, understanding of the series, I did say the Wolves match up well against the Thunder, and I still do believe that. I still do think they match up well. They limited Shea quite well. They played great defense on him. They just couldn't hit shots, and it was similar to what happened in the Warriors series in Game 1. They couldn't hit a shot. And I don't expect that to happen throughout the whole series. I really don't. I think at some point the shots are going to stop falling. I think Ant's going to start, really going into Ant-Man mode that we've seen him in the playoffs. And it's going to be a much closer game or a much closer series than what this game foretold. I think it's going to be a 7-game series. I do think this Wolves team is a better matchup than the Nuggets. I don't want to say bigger threat. I don't think they're a bigger threat. They're just a better matchup. They match up well. But ultimately, I do think the Thunder are going to pull it out in 7 once again. I wouldn't be shocked if the Wolves won, though. But I do think the Thunder's defense is just too good. And they also have multiple elite shot makers. Shea, J-Dub, Chet. I don't know how heavily, if you're the Wolves, you rely on Julius Randle or J.D. McDaniels. You could rely on Anthony Edwards. He's shown that he's someone you could rely on. But it's the Wolves are as good as their role players are. And it's hard to see their role players outperforming the Thunders. That's really what I think it comes down to. But I do expect a great superstar matchup, great aura matchup between Shea and Ant. Should be fun. And, I look forward to both of these series. These are some really, really fun series. We're going to have new champions for the 7th time in 7 years. And, you have a young star potentially winning these. Jalen Brunson's not young, but, it'll be, what a story it'd be if the Knicks win a championship. New York would go crazy. I know I would. And what does a Shea championship do for his legacy? This might be one of the greatest seasons of all time if he gets a championship, right? So those are some fun possibilities this season. But yeah, what fun basketball. I hope tomorrow's game between the Wolves and Thunder is better, a little closer, similar to this Knicks game. But man, what a great time of hoops right now.